course, I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This is Nick Wright.
This is
What show number is this, Nick?
157.
Sometimes we call people they're slow learners, and
What do I
some
do?
people.
Oh, what happened here?
Let's get it. Let's stack up that money.
Our fine folks in Los
This is
Angeles.
going to end our bet because now we're even. Jenna.
I just give you all my money
Let's
because
stay right
we got
here.
Charlie, Whit, and Therese.
Yes.
Our power structure in LA sent Jenna 1,000 pins.
Now,
knowing
let
I
me
got to pay
borrow one from you,
$100 a
sweetie.
pin.
I'm going to need that back, so when you're done. 85 is where the line is drawn.
I
Talk to me.
triumphantly said yesterday, because I sold my house
Nice
in Houston.
suit.
Thank you.
Oh my God, this one's broken.
I sold my house in Houston officially yesterday. And I walked into the office and I said, for the first time in 10 years, I am officially, as of today, out of debt. I have no debt whatsoever. But now I owe Chris Carter roughly $9,000 thanks to Jenna Wolfe bringing all these pins.
Right.
So now I'm right back in the hole.
The team is ready.
We are
great.
good.
Yes.
We have writing utensils.
I'm so proud of you, Jenna.
Thank you, Cece. It's been.
It ain't great.
I have a speech that I have created, but I will wait until we have.
Thank you.
Yeah, save it to the
Nothing to
Emmy
say.
when we win the Emmy.
Okay, you got it. Oh, you pressed the button here.
Yeah.
Here it goes. These are interesting pens. Hey, if I told you the Warriors lost by 40 points last night, your natural reaction would be, did you say 4 points? To which I'd say, no, 40. To which you then ask me what year it was. Because this year, the way the Warriors were built, the way the Warriors were playing, they weren't supposed to lose any games. Last night, their last game of the season against the Utah Jazz, and they did lose by 40, 119-79, without Steph Curry in the lineup. So the Warriors have now lost 10 of their last 17, and they'll be the 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs. Durant spoke about the Warriors' recent struggles after the game.
I just feel like there's been so much movement in our lineups, and I think that we let that take a toll on us a bit. We should just kind of push through it. I felt like it killed the morale a bit towards the end of the year.
We need the competitive spirit, we need the juice, we need the joy, and we haven't had much of that. And so we got to get right. We got to get our minds right, and that's what I told them.
All right, Cece, I was surprised, but I'm sure you guys were surprised as well. How concerning are the Warriors' struggles entering the playoffs right now?
I mean, I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about the Warriors and how they're playing.
Yeah.
I don't know where Steph is. If you tell me Steph is going to be healthy, then I don't have any concern. But we don't know that. Right now, if this is the team that we're talking about, yes, you'd have concern. They don't have enough firepower. They don't have their floor general in Steph. People say, well, man, how big of a difference is that going to make? Well, he's one of the best players in the world. Number 3, arguably. There's no one that can take that from him. But the way they run their offense, the way they play with pace, they play with space, and there's no player, as Nick would say, that has the gravity on the defense that Steph Curry has. Now, this is also a team that Nick had pointed out. We've never seen a team in NBA history to have this type of run, 4 championships, all those. I think they played 65 playoff games.
4 finals appearances is what they're going for. They won the 2 titles. Basically, they're going on potentially their 4th consecutive 100-game season.
Yeah, there was going to be problems. Like, Nick was like, okay, they've escaped a lot of injuries throughout the years. Eventually, it's going to catch up with them. And we started talking about this in November. It just happens now that we're in April, we're getting ready for the playoffs, that what he said happens to be very, very true. They've avoided injuries all these years. And we could argue that Steph is the one player that they couldn't afford to lose, especially in the Western Conference. When you look at the point guards and what they're going to have to face in the playoffs, now I do like the fact this is best of 7 in the NBA. So you're going to have to beat this team 4 times. I don't believe they're going to lose in the first round. But if you tell me Steph is going to be healthy, then I believe that the Warriors team that we're used to seeing, we will see that, and they will make it to the Western Conference Final against the Houston Rockets.
Listen, the Golden State Warriors right now, with that being their final marks on the regular season, need to, as a collective unit, look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves this question. Were we a great team, or did we just have a once-in-a-lifetime, special, transcendent offensive basketball player in Steph Curry, and he's made us all look better. Because while Clay and Draymond are going on that 4th straight year, and you understand why they might be a little fatigued, Kevin Durant is not. While you might say, okay, when they lose Steph Curry, they go from best team in the league to 4th or 5th best team in the league, you shouldn't go from best team in the league to 7-10 with a negative point differential over this stretch of time.
With a 20-ranked offense and a 17th ranked
defense. To where you are a below average team. Chris Carter, in your opinion, who is the greatest basketball player ever to live?
Michael Jordan.
Okay. He retired, and his team won 55 games the next year. I understand they had an offseason to prepare. I get all of that. But you had the greatest player ever, in most people's eyes, walk away from the game, and their team was able to at least qualify for the playoffs, win 50-plus games, go 7 against the Knicks in the second round, and a lot of people think should have won that series if not for a bad call. This is embarrassing. Kevin Durant has so much to thank Steph Curry for. Steph Curry opened his team and his city up to him and said, you know what? I don't care that I'm the 2-time defending MVP. I don't care that I was the unanimous MVP. I don't care that I am encroaching upon LeBron's corner to be the face of the league. Come play ball with me. Well, pick him up for a month and a half. Everyone knows I believe the Cavs are going to be in the NBA Finals. The Raptors, though, are the favorites in the East, technically. They're the 1 seed in the East. Now the Warriors wouldn't even have home court against the Raptors if they get there, because the Raptors haven't been playing great basketball as of late. This level of effort. And yesterday, what was their big objective yesterday? Make sure Klay Thompson averages 20 points for the year. Klay Thompson, by the way, that's clearly what it was. Like, he needed, I think, 22 points. They let him take 27 shots. He played an absurd amount of minutes, given his blowout. He's got to get his 20 points. Like, that is an awful way to finish the season, and there is no excuse for the Warriors being this bad without Steph. None.
2 questions then, but first that one. Is this about Steph or is this about Kevin Durant? Because when we had this conversation in weeks past, you said, I'm sorry, there's no way they're going to lose a step. They have the 2nd or 3rd, whatever you call it, greatest player in the NBA right now in Kevin Durant. There's no way that this
I didn't say they wouldn't lose a step. I said I didn't think they could get beaten in the first round. I said that even if you don't have Steph, if
but
you
I
have
don't
KD,
think you thought they can go out and lose by 40 points.
I didn't think they'd look like this. Cece, I know KD doesn't want to have to do the leadership thing, but even if you don't want to, shouldn't you be able to for a stretch of time when the team needs you? Like, do you think I'm overreacting to this?
I think you're definitely overreacting. I think this has some Kevin Durant on it. You're not pleased with the way he's played in the absence, but to me, this is somewhat like Cleveland did last year. After Houston beat Golden State, and it looked like they were going to get home the number 1 seed, Golden State mentally, they checked out. Cleveland, they gave up the number 1 seed last year. All right, they went through the end of the regular season just like the Warriors, and they steamrolled everyone in the playoffs. Now, that's what I'm expecting from Golden State. I'm not holding them responsible for some stellar play that they lived up to the last 3 seasons, the last 12 to 15 games. I know the NBA, the guys get tired. Their interest is waning, and you could see that with Golden State. They're not playing with the same. And the way you can tell that is they lost Steph, and their defense went down. They were a top 5 NBA defensive team. That's the secret part to the sauce of what they do in Golden State that people don't realize. Yeah, they're a top 5 offense all time, but they're a top 5 defense currently in the NBA, and that combination is what makes them lethal.
Let me just ask you one question real quick, though, because I understand the Cleveland comparison for last year. What Cleveland had going for it last year was when they gave up the number 1 seed, their team was whole. They had already seen and played games at full capacity with that team going into the playoffs. So if they took a couple weeks off at the end of the regular season, I'm not excusing it, but they knew, okay, this version of us can be great. Is it not concerning for you that the Warriors, you talk about athletes wanting to take pictures and see things in their mind, that what level of confidence does this Warriors team have without Steph?
Well, I don't think we're looking at the full picture because we act like Steph just got hurt at the end of the season. Steph has been hurt 2 other times. So when he got hurt the 3rd time, that's when they gave up on the regular season. We got to get him healthy. We got to get to the playoffs. So what we're doing right now, it's not that important. And also, I've seen Golden State with KD, with Steph, with Draymond, and with Klay a year and a half. And let me tell you, they were the best team in the NBA over that year and a half. Now, Houston has only been together 3/4 of a year. So now we're getting ready to see the best version of Houston, hoping to be the best version against Golden State. So, I've seen enough of them for a year and a half. Not only this season, but last season, because they're pretty much the same team. The casting characters is pretty much the same. So, yes, over a year and a half, I've seen enough of Golden State to believe that, yes, they're going to be very good. They're going to be tough to get out in the Western Conference.
Yeah, but they also know that going into the postseason, they've lost 10 of their last 17
It's
games.
unbelievable.
All right, coming up,
42.
how seriously should the Patriots be considering life after Tom Brady? That's next on First Things First. After Tom Brady, the will he or won't he play till he's 100
dice.
question.
They were rolling dice.
Oh, so you couldn't?
Yes.
It wasn't like horse.
No.
So that big will he or won't he play till he's 100 question, that's still lingering with the Patriots fans and the Patriots brass. After an MVP season at age 40, it seemed Brady could play forever, she said sort of sarcastically. But then a tough Super Bowl loss, and then some existential thoughts in a Facebook documentary, and suddenly that dream seems a little pipey. Patriots owner Robert Kraft spoke about Brady to The Athletic. He said, quote, I hope he plays. He's at a different point in his life, but that is something for he and his family to decide what's right for him. Me personally, I'd like to see him play as long as he can. He's driven to excel. I think as long as he feels he's like that, he'll keep playing. We're so lucky to have him in our system. What do you think, Nick Wright? Should the Patriots focus all their draft picks on building around Brady, knowing they have a short window, or do you think they should focus on the future?
So this is, I think this is a really interesting question because it seems like the conventional wisdom is, since they traded Jimmy Garoppolo, got a second-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo, because there's 4 or 5, or depending on what you think of Mason Rudolph, 6 quarterbacks in this draft, that obviously the Patriots, when their backup quarterback's Brian Hoyer, they're going to use one of those first or second-round picks on the post-Brady quarterback, on what will be their backup and then eventually their quarterback of the future. And I just think that would be the wrong decision. I think you have to recognize the history of their franchise. Before Tom Brady took the field, the New England Patriots had been in the NFL for 31 years. In those 31 years, they won 0 championships. They went to the Super Bowl twice. In the 17 years since he took the field, they've been to the Super Bowl 8 times. They've won 5 of those. And so you have this window that has stayed open longer than you ever could have imagined. But you do know it's going to close in the next few years. Spend every asset you have maximizing that window. Keep trying to rack up Super Bowls, because the moment Tom Brady retires, you're just like every other team. That I understand you have this legacy now, you're a great organization, I get all that. But you become one of the regular people once Tom Brady walks away. And I want to just add one other small point to it. People would say, well, if they had done that, they wouldn't have drafted Jimmy Garoppolo. Knowing what we know now, like, they didn't get a good return on Jimmy Garoppolo. They spent a second-round pick on him. They got less than 8 quarters of football out of him, and what they got was a second-round pick back for him. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo was not the draft pick that ended up being a great decision for them. He could have been if Brady had retired, but he didn't. I would look at, you need help on defense. You need wide receivers. I would give Brady every opportunity to win right now, and we'll deal with the future when the future gets here, CC.
If you know anything about New England's history, then you would know that they haven't done well with rookie players. They don't have a lot of rookie players that make a contribution. So I disagree with you. I believe that they should spend substantial resources to try to replace Tom Brady. The same way that Mr. Kraft, when he looked at the potential Belichick era ending, Josh McDaniel was getting ready to leave. Mr. Kraft had a conversation with him before he decided to go out that door, because he wants a backup plan, because he heard all the rumors about Bill Belichick. Now, to me, he would be a little naive or not reading the tea leaves if he didn't get a backup plan for Belichick, which he did with Josh McDaniels, if he doesn't get that for Tom Brady, and he's got to get it right now. It's beyond the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. Jacoby Brissett, they also traded him. So any of their 2 options as far as a stopgap measure or someone who would take the baton, Both of those are gone with this last season. So they have a number of draft picks. I look for them to either put together either 2 number 2s or a 2 and a 3 to try to move up again to the bottom of the first round, or select a quarterback in the second round. It is the right thing for them to do at this point in their career. Tom Brady, there is no map. There is no, oh, we can look at this data and it tells us that a quarterback at this time. There is no information that would give us that. Tom Brady, as far as a football player, his life's expired. Now, if you don't go into this draft and looking to get some type of replacement, some type of young blood in there, because Tom Brady's career is not going to end Mr. Kraft's ownership. Tom Brady's career is not going to end Belichick's legacy.
Right.
And if you think Kraft and Belichick don't want to win without Brady, you're missing some of the stuff that they want. I mean, that's going to be part of their legacy. How did they maintain the franchise after Tom Brady? I believe that's going to be very, very important to them, and I believe that they will invest resources this year to be able to get Tom Brady's ultimate replacement.
I guess the question would be, how much longer do you think they have to play with that? Like, do you see Nick's point in that they can be so successful right now that they have maybe...
No, because there's not enough players in the draft. I know New England's system. It's a hard system to learn. It's hard for younger players to play. That's why Belichick has done so well with retreading other veteran players. Last season, they went all in. I mean, every year they're trying to win, but part of trying to win is also having that adequate replacement.
What's the difference between last year and this year? They went all in last year.
He's saying they went all in by acquiring veteran players, not all in through the draft. They traded away draft picks for Brandon Cooks. And that's what I would say is, I'm not saying you have to use all 4 of these draft picks on players in this draft. I would be fine with a similar Brandon Cooks type trade. Like, I would be fine with something where we look at the Jimmy Garoppolo thing and say, oh, they got a second-round pick, they got a fair return. Guess what maybe they, instead of having 5 Super Bowls, would have 6 if they had traded Jimmy Garoppolo instead of for a draft pick to then go replace Jimmy Garoppolo for a corner, for some help on the defense. I know that what CC's saying is almost assuredly what they will do. And long term, I understand that that's why it makes sense.
That's what football practice is.
I just think if you have this type of asset, maximize your ability to win championships while you have this specific asset.
Yeah, you have the asset, but the recipe is veteran players. So you can't say I got the asset and now I'm getting ready to change the way I've done it. You tell me the draft picks has made great contributions to New England.
As rookies?
Yeah, let's.
No. As rookies, I understand that. But unless we think this is Brady's last year, you could draft a guy this year that helps you in 20.
Every year Tom Brady starts, you have to think that's going to be his last year. You can't say, oh, what's our window? There ain't no window for no 40-year-old quarterback. It's right now. But this Patriots franchise and their tradition of winning, it will continue. Just like when Tom Brady got hurt. They won 11 games, right? Okay, they will continue that. That's important to Kraft, and I know it's important to Bill Belichick.
I feel like we should always mention Tom Brady turns 41 in August. That's 41. Coming up, should Russell Westbrook be getting more MVP consideration? Russ thinks so. Next on First Things First. All right, time for other stories to start your morning. Le'Veon Bell and the Steelers reportedly...
He's younger than me, man. I'm washed.
Not far off in negotiations. We haven't said that in like 5 years. The Steelers have increased their offer from what was believed to be $13 million annually. So it seems like the two sides could agree to terms sooner than later. CC, what do you make of this latest development?
I'm sick of hearing about it.
Yeah.
It's something the Pittsburgh Steelers don't do. We had Jerome Bettis here the other day. No one knows that organization closer to him than him. And the continue negotiating in the paper, continuing to allow information to be leaked. Like, this is no news. Like, let us know when you got a contract. You've been doing this to us for 2 years, all right? I thought you were leaving Pittsburgh. They're trying to paint you out to be a villain. Like, I don't like the fact, and I think he's gone about it the wrong way with Pittsburgh by negotiating through the public, by having this information out there, and I think it's not served him well. And I think that's why some of the people you talk about in the local media there, they give him a hard time because of that.
If those dollar figures are accurate, though, that their offer was around $13 million a year, and the Steelers have since increased it, then Le'Veon's done just about as well as he possibly could do. Like, if that's accurate, if they're offering him any type of deal that starts around $13 to $14 million a year, you got to take that deal, Le'Veon Bell, assuming that there's any guaranteed money associated with it, assuming just first couple years are guaranteed. That is setting the new running back marketplace, as we've talked about. That is nearly doubling the next highest paid running back. That's as well as Le'Veon's going to do anywhere.
All right, let's stick with the NFL here. Rams GM Les Snead says that Aaron Donald is on the verge of being the highest paid defender in the NFL. Von Miller of the Broncos is currently the highest paid defensive player, making about $19 million annually. CC, what do you think? Do you think Donald is the best defensive player in the NFL?
It's not a matter of do I think he's the best player. I know he's going to be the highest paid. I mean, he's definitely one of a few guys that I would look at if I was having a fantasy football draft. The only thing I can say about Aaron Donald that gives me a little bit reservation, as a defensive tackle, on a defense last year in the Rams, it was mediocre. Yeah, he was defensive MVP, but that defense was mediocre. If I was potentially going to draft a guy, I would potentially go for a defensive end who can put more pressure on the quarterback, cause more complications for the offense compared to a defensive tackle. It's just more of a position preference if I was trying to maximize my defense with the money.
If you're going to play interior defensive line, you could be the best defensive player in the league, but in order to be the most impactful defensive player in the league, you need to be next level transcendent. Like we saw JJ as an interior defensive lineman, 20-plus sacks multiple years. Bruce Smith did it. Reggie White did it all over the defensive line. But I just mentioned 3 of the greatest D linemen ever. So I think Aaron Donald's talent he's the best defensive player in the league. I think it's almost impossible to be the most impactful defensive player in the league at his spot unless you are one of the 2 or 3 best to ever do it.
All right, on to the NBA. Tonight, the Cavs host the Knicks to close out the season. LeBron says he intends to stick to his Zero Dark 30 plan. No social media during the playoffs. For reference, Nick and I will not be doing that during the playoffs. CeCe, how important is it to eliminate distractions and social media distractions during the playoffs?
I like the fact that LeBron, he's been consistent about it. And the truth of it, social media doesn't help you. I mean, all the athletes are involved in social media. But when it comes to winning games and getting better, his most important time of his life, he's not going to have social media. To me, it's just a stamp of approval that, yeah, social media, it's overrated. It's not going to be able to help LeBron and the Cavs get to his goal. And for him, it's less stuff for him to have to worry about coming down the stretch. He's worried about how they're going to win, how they're going to rebound, how they're going to defend. Those are the things the most important in the next 2 months.
And I think for a lot of guys in the league, especially guys LeBron's age or at least a little bit younger, it'd be a hard thing to do. Like most of us, I'm LeBron's age, KD's a little bit younger. Like, we are addicted to our devices.
You guys, maybe.
And so, like, LeBron has, as CeCe mentioned, this has been part of his routine, that he will basically log off of everything once the playoffs begin. I think it has served him well. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I think it is at least a slight edge as far as not listening to the noise surrounding him and his team throughout these NBA players long now, throughout this 2-month postseason run they're about to start.
All right, last night the Jazz beat the Warriors by 40 points. I have to say it slowly like that just for emphasis. Utah can secure 3rd place with a win over Portland tonight. You know, since February 1st, only the Rockets have a better winning percentage than Utah. Nick, how dangerous can the Jazz be in the playoffs?
Man, we got to give this team respect now. Like, we can't all year long talk about that the West is tough. It's man, look at how deep the West is. And then a team that might finish 3rd in the West be like, oh yeah, they're just a good story. More than a good story. They have a star in Donovan Mitchell. They might have the defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert. This is a dangerous basketball team.
I've been seeing this in Utah for a long time. It just didn't start now. It just didn't start the last few seasons with Gordon Hayward. It started going back to Karl Malone, John Stockton days. There's not a lot of respect that comes out of Utah. They're a great team at home. They give you problems on the road. I think they got the 4th best home record. So this is an organization that even when they play good basketball, they don't get the type of respect and recognition. But, yes, they are a dangerous team. Yes, they do present some matchup problems for other teams. But don't look past Utah, because we're talking about the Western Conference being the hardest ever. What if they win a couple games? Take a team to 6 or 7 games. That's what makes it tough for Houston or Golden State to be able to win the championship. So Utah is for real.
All right, tonight the Oklahoma City Thunder close out the regular season. Russ, right there. He needs 16 rebounds to average a triple-double. Carmelo Anthony jokingly said that Russ steals rebounds from his teammates. CeCe, how incredible would it be for Russ to average a triple-double in consecutive seasons?
It would be nice. We haven't had a whole bunch of conversation around it. And I think with a lot of the negative, the lack of OKC being a spectacular team, that we've kind of gotten away from Russ and the triple-doubles. When you look at their overall record, like how much of an impact has it had on the season? Surprisingly, coming down the last 2 weeks, said, man, if Russ is able to pull a certain number of rebounds, he can have a triple-double. It's like, really? Like, that's still part of the equation of what can happen to him?
I was on the phone talking to you.
I mean, from a historic standpoint, it's significant, but I'm into the team. I like to see the team play better. I like to see them have 5 to 8 more wins. That would be more important to me than getting 16 rebounds and averaging a triple-double.
This would matter to you more if they were a little more
if they had played up to their potential.
Okay.
All right? This year's team, they have been, if not the biggest disappointment, one of a couple big disappointments in the NBA.
Yeah, because we made a big deal about it last year.
Well, it was the novelty of it. We hadn't seen it done since Oscar Robertson did it, and a lot of people believed, well, it never would be done. Like, people looked at the pace they played in Oscar Robertson's era, also that Oscar was a truly special, one of the 10 greatest players in the history of the sport. And Oscar only averaged a triple-double during a season once, but over the course of his first 6 seasons, cumulatively, he averaged a triple-double. So, like, he was a once-in-a-lifetime player in a different era. We didn't think we'd ever see it again. So when Russ was approaching it, when there was preseason buzz before last year about Russ doing it, and then he fulfilled that, it was a huge story. This year, the novelty's worn off. I think he's going to do it. Like, if Russ needs 16 rebounds, he's going to go get those 16 rebounds.
But who cares?
I don't want to say who cares because listen, if it were easy to do, other guys would have done it. But CeCe's point that this style is not translated to more wins for them, that is the indictment on it. And that is one of the reasons why last year 47 wins given his supporting cast was actually a pretty good accomplishment. This year, 47 wins, which is where they sit right now, given his supporting cast, is disappointing, even though Russ is averaging same rebounds, same assists, and a higher field goal percentage than he did last season.
All right. The NFL draft is 15 days away. Have Platform will mock draft. Of the 10,000 questions out there surrounding the top-tier quarterbacks, most of them aimed at former UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen. Is he too slight of frame? Is he too arrogant, too cocky, too rich, 2 chains? Rosen addressed these concerns in an interview with ESPN. Quote, my family isn't like stupid wealthy, but I'm coming from a place where if football doesn't work out, I don't have to work at McDonald's. Other NFL players had the same opportunities. I just haven't tried to hide it or fool teams into thinking I'm someone I'm not. My passion for this game lies in the game, not my need to play it. Tons of players needed this game, needed the money, played it out of obligation and burnt out. I don't need it, and I still give it everything to it. CeCe, what is your reaction? There's a lot there, but your reaction to Josh Rosen's comments.
Josh need to be quiet. Josh don't know nothing about pro football. He don't know why guys played in the past. He don't know why guys burned out. He don't know that the average lifespan of the last 30 years has been 3.2 years. So it's not burnout. It's called being the elite of the elite. It's called only 21,000 people have ever done this. So for me, he's naive, like a lot of rookies. He also said that if Tom Brady has 6 rings, then I want 7. Well, okay, tell that to the Jets when you go into their locker room. Tell that to one of these losing teams at the beginning of the draft. You went to Cleveland. Imagine saying that to Cleveland. Hey, guys, I'm going to win 6, 7 Super Bowls. Well, really? Because we ain't been in the 6 or 7 playoff games. So for me, the rookies are naive, and they keep falling for answering all these questions the wrong way. Where his parents, what his parents did, has nothing to do with the NFL. Him saying that, oh, because my parents, I don't have to take a job at McDonald's? Like, what kind of insight? Like, is he, there's a lot of other jobs, Josh. You don't have to have a minimum wage job. It's not like guys in the NFL going to the NFL, like they didn't have nothing else, like they don't have other skills. So for me, he's just a naive kid who doesn't know a whole bunch of like pro football, and he keeps stepping in it. I don't mind people being bright. But you can't explain to me why guys are good in the NFL and why they're not when you've never been in the NFL.
CeCe, one of the things you said to me before the show was that if Josh had played this differently, that his family background could be viewed as a plus.
Absolutely.
You talked about how I forget the exact, the recruiting story about dinner tables. Like,
yes.
Can you relay that to the...
Urban Meyer said he likes to sit down with families, both parents, husband, wife, kid, with parents that have a normal dinner time, that have a normal schedule, people that are professional, that the expectations at the dinner table, like I don't mind taking a kid single parent. I don't mind taking a kid from the projects, but also I have a thing about people that have high expectations in their life. And just because your parents have been successful or been educated, that's not a detriment coming into the league. But how you position it and how you talk about it, I believe, has been a negative for him.
Right. So the point, like, that we could, there's the idea that, oh, he's going to be rich. There's not a lot of rich kids in the league. He's not going to, if it gets tough, he could walk away. That is
actually
one thing.
There's guys in the locker room that are richer than his parents.
Absolutely. No. But the point that I'm saying is it could be positioned like that. It could also be positioned as we were talking before the show, that you've got a lot of expectations. That all of a sudden there's a lot of, you have to achieve super highly at a super high level to be considered success in that family. Where Josh is, I think, setting himself up, and everybody, I shouldn't say everybody knows, but people who watch the show know, like, listen, I think he's the best quarterback in the class. I also happen to like how intellectually curious he is. I like that part of him. But where Josh is hurting himself with people similar to my partner here, who are the people he's going to be in a locker room with, is he seems to be talking about things that he doesn't know about, and it's rubbing them, I believe, the wrong way. You talked about his biggest hurdle when he gets to the NFL.
It's one thing to be smart, but it's another thing to ask questions and sound stupid. To say, oh, my parents, yeah, they've been successful. Yeah, I don't need football. I wouldn't have to work at McDonald's. Well, who would have to work at McDonald's? A guy trying out for an NFL team. So I just think he's naive to the intellect of the players that are coming into the league.
So tell me how that affects, and I understand completely what you're saying, and I understand, and admittedly, he said he stepped in it many times along the way, and I think the reason he did this interview was to try to, I don't want to say put a Band-Aid on that, but maybe explain some of the points from which he was coming. But tell me how that translates to football, and like how that will affect him as a football player.
The players don't care. Like wherever he's getting drafted right now, the players don't care about that stuff.
And that would affect the way he plays?
One thing that the players tell rookie players, when you come into the locker room, don't come in with your press clippings. Don't nobody care about what he did at UCLA. Don't nobody care about what his parents did.
Could that keep him, though, from being successful?
I'm not going to use that against him. No player knows what's going on in the NFL till you get in the NFL locker room. They will be shocked, like players have been for decades, the type of people in there, the type of mentality in there, and how hard it is to repeat success. That's what it is. As smart as he is, he's still very, very naive about the business that he's getting ready to get drafted into.
The hardest thing for him, though, in your opinion, tell me if I'm wrong here, is not going to be the adjustment as far as family wealth. It's not going to be his level of intelligence. The hardest thing for him is going to be walking into an NFL locker room. The offense they're speaking might as well be another language, and the violence of it. The fact that he is not some untouchable. He's the best player on UCLA's team. He's the highest draft pick on UCLA's team. Special rules surrounding Josh Rosen. Wherever he drafts, he's going to be third quarterback on the depth chart his first day there.
Yep.
The rules as far as don't touch him at practice might not apply to him the way they apply to other guys.
He's going to be the end of every joke. He's going to be getting taped up to a goalpost. He's going to get big practical jokes pulled on him. He's going to get put in his jersey, stuff put in his trousers. Like, he's going to be at the bottom of the totem pole. And being smart, does that help you get from the bottom to the top? Yes, I believe it's a benefit. Intellect and learnedness is a benefit in pro sports. So I never knock people that are smart because there are a lot of smart people there. But you have to learn how to use your intellect to be able to answer questions in a relative way and stop looking like some kid. Like, he has no clue what's happening in the NFL. He's going to be shocked.
And when you say he's going to be shocked, I can't get over a story you told me unrelated to Josh months ago. It's about one of the teammates you played with that you hold in the highest regard. John Randall.
Yes.
John Randall, literally, the home he grew up in, dirt floor, literal dirt floor, right?
He had his locker right before you go to the field. And he had a picture of, I can't call it a hut, I can't call it a house, but the structure had no plumbing and had a dirt floor. And everyone who played with Johnny Randall knew that that was up in his locker. And every day he was in a pursuit not to go back there. So Josh talking about, oh, I might not have to go to McDonald's. There's a lot of guys in the locker room like Johnny Randall that are going to be your teammates, guys going to be fighting for you, and you need to relate to them on some level. And that part, I believe, Josh is going to have to adapt to, because there's more people in the locker room like Johnny Randall than there are like Josh Rosen.
All right, we'll break there. Coming up, can the 76ers trust the process all the way to the NBA Finals? Next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. We're now joined by NBA analyst, the Czar, Mike Fratello. Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Morning, gang.
Good to see you, Coach. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate you having me here.
You came in with you had some gifts or something.
Came in
for us?
hot.
Listen, I hate to bring this back up again, but just a little something I slept in last night.
What is this?
Well, along the way, we had to beat a few other teams.
That's that's mine right there.
No. You have to win the last game to get the championship.
So hold on, wait.
What am I
So wait,
missing?
you coached at Shaq's fantasy basketball camp,
I did.
correct?
I did.
You coached against Chris Carter?
Yes.
And you beat his team in the championship
I
game.
didn't take any shots that night, but I tried
brought
to.
What about the shots you took on me in the first quarter? Hey, first of all, Coach, you put the youngest guy on me, a 30-year-old.
How many years ago was this? Just so I'm clear.
It was last summer.
Yeah, he was trying to dog.
okay.
He was trying to dog you, wasn't he?
He had a guy that wasn't supposed to be playing, supposed to be 35. Guy is 30, played in Vegas. Put him on me, full
Didn't
court
read
press.
his birth certificate.
And then I was talking. Oh, let's go.
You were talking a lot.
Yeah,
you were.
that was,
See what Cece looks like fired
yeah.
up?
Oh, my
Fired
God.
up.
So good.
Coach was talking trash back.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk
The
about
czar is no joke.
the 76ers. It's been quite the swing for them. 2 years ago, they won 10 games. Last night, they not only won their 50th game, they were favored by 9.5 over the Hawks. How do I know that? Don't worry about it. Sixers winning their franchise record 15th straight game last night. Now, a win tonight over the Bucks clinches the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference for them. If they lose and the Cavs win, they'd face the Pacers in the first round of the playoffs. Coach, I'll start with you. How impressive is the 76ers turnaround?
28 games a year ago. Now, all of a sudden, they've won their 50th game, moving on to 51. And when you look at what's happened with this team, everybody made fun of the word process, but the process has taken place. And when you have high draft picks and you don't give up and you weed out those you don't want to move forward, they built the roster and they stayed incredibly with their head coach, who is an excellent head coach. They run really good stuff on offense, and they compete defensively. And now think about this. How many teams on their way to 50 wins after the All-Star break or around that time add 3 great pieces to the team? Bellinelli was one. Ilyasova was the second. And then you have to think about this. They added Fultz.
Markelle Fultz.
Okay, the number 1 pick who hadn't played for him all season. He comes back, and he's given them a little bit of speed and quickness and one-on-one ability. This is a really deep team.
The Bellinelli-Ilyasova additions are so interesting because typically those types of players, Golden State, Houston, Cleveland, teams, those guys go. The buyout market goes for guys. They want to go try to win a championship. I got my money from this other team. They bought me out. Let me go try and win a championship. Philadelphia kept the roster and cap flexibility to be able to bring those guys in, and they were good enough already that those teams, those players could sign there and say, we can still make a deep playoff run. Since Christmas, we're talking about today will be the 50th game they've played since Christmas. That is the majority of the season. Second best record in the NBA. Second best defense in the NBA, the best net rating, so point differential in the NBA over an enormous stretch of time. I can't remember seeing a team this young playing this well. People will bring up the Thunder with Durant and Russ and Harden, but they didn't play at this level when one of those guys was a rookie, when one of those guys was a second-year player, as Embiid essentially is. Like, a team this young, like, is there precedent for it in your eyes, this young playing this well?
I know that I had a team in Cleveland at one time where we started 3 rookies, and brought the 4th one.
And who were those rookies, Coach?
It was Zydrunas Ilgauskas,
Yep.
Brevin Knight, Cedric Henderson, and then the 4th one was the kid Anderson out of Kentucky. And what happened was I was starting him, and then I realized we'll be better if we bring him off the bench for scoring. So about 12, 14 games in, I sat down with Derek, talked to him, and said, listen, we need you coming off the bench, and then you'll be on the floor at the end of games. Henderson gave us a 6'8" long defender. Couldn't make shots. Probably would have won 4 more games if he could make a 15-footer. But he defended, he ran. It gave us great balance with that first unit. But that group, the point is, 4 rookies won 47 games that year with the Cavaliers.
Now, Coach, one thing that we like to be the show, and it's nice to have you, to talk about coaches. Very few basketball shows, they talk about the marquee guys, talk about the rotation. They don't talk about the coaches. I believe coaching is very important, especially at the professional level. You talked about you have to believe in the process, because also in the process, they didn't kill the coach. Typically, a guy who compounds those types of losses, they're going to fire him. So one is, how good is the coach? And number 2 is, and you talked about this, and I've been following your career, you've always done a great job with basketball development. You're developing the younger guys up under you. How good of a job has Philadelphia done in developing these guys in their overall character and their overall basketball skill?
Chris, it starts, as you know, even before that, it starts with the evaluation of the talent before they pick them, select them. Because oftentimes, guys get high picks and don't do a good job. Anthony Bennett in Cleveland, number one
the
pick.
Entire last decade in Orlando.
You have to have personnel people that understand who can play and who can't play in the NBA. Philly's done a very good job of identifying that. And look, everybody makes a mistake, but if you make a mistake, move it on quickly.
Right. They
Don't
made a
tell
mistake
anybody
on
else
Michael
it was a
Carter
mistake.
Williams, and they
we
flipped
happen to have this guy available if you want him. Okay?
Right.
However you word it, get him out of there, move on. You made a mistake, okay? Don't keep him to prove a point. Well, they've believed in Brown. Brown and his staff have done an incredible job developing. Think about this. We don't even talk about Sarge. If Sarge was on another team, he'd be like, wow, this guy's young, he's talented, shoots threes, rebounds, can get you 25 points. Wouldn't even talk about him on this team. It's incredible.
Quickly, you talked about these young guys, and I'm just wondering if that parlays itself into experience and the lack thereof, and what that means when you head into the postseason. Or are you concerned about them at all because of their lack of experience, or what you've seen over this last 15-game stretch sort of leaves you without any concern?
When I was doing talk shows 3 months ago, I was saying, yeah, this Philly run is great. However, when it gets to the playoffs, we got to watch out. They're young.
Yeah.
Okay? Now they had Redick in the starting unit. Now they've added Ilyasova, Bellinelli, guys who have had big games under their belts. I think this group is talented enough. Watch out if you get them. I asked a couple coaches about 2 weeks ago, who would you not want to see in the playoffs? Cleveland, they said, and Philadelphia was the second team that they would not want to meet in the playoffs. They could be so young and so hungry and so excited that they're dangerous.
It's good stuff. Coach, stick around. Coming up, how concerned should we be with the Warriors' recent struggles? We'll talk about the Western Conference next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First with Mike Fratello. Talk about limping to the finish line. The not-so-Golden State Warriors have done just that. They wrapped up their season last night with the opposite of a bow. What's the opposite of a bow? It's a 40-point loss to the Utah Jazz. This from the team who looked, played, and carried themselves as unstoppable 2 months ago. The Warriors now have lost 10 of their last 17 games. They'll be the 2 seed, the firm 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs. Coach, how concerning are the Warriors' struggles entering the postseason now? I'm
a little concerned. Steve Kerr has to say the things that he's saying.
Sure.
To give his team the mental support that, we're still the champions and we're still good enough to win the whole thing.
But he's worried.
But you have to tell me this. Every year, winning, it does catch up with you eventually.
Yes.
The wear and tear physically is the first thing, but mentally it takes its toll on you. Everybody's after you. Everybody wants a piece of your team. Everybody celebrates after they beat the defending world champs. And now you compound it with the injuries. And you're talking about arguably the best point guard in the NBA. You may have other ones you like better. But you can't lose a Curry and expect to be a champion again.
Here's the thing. I absolutely agree that they are not a championship team without Steph Curry. And I think that if we found out Steph had, instead of just spraining his MCL, torn his ACL and was done for the year, you could scratch them off the list. Like, they are no longer eligible to be champions. But that's not the situation. What they are is they're going to have to go through a stretch of basketball without him. They expect him back in a couple weeks, they hope. I'm shocked that they went from championship team to below 500. We're talking about almost a quarter of the season. 17 games where they've been outscored by their opponents, where they don't seem to have the ability to show up each and every night. And people can say, oh, well, they got bored with all the winning. Well, the best player on their team has only been on the team for a year and a half, and Kevin Durant. Like, that's the part of this that to me is so disappointing, is that I know you can't win a championship without Steph Curry, but you've got to fall to where you're below 500, to where you're getting beaten by 40 points in your final game of the year, where you played your starters. It's not like they rested everyone. All their starters played heavy minutes last night. Like, that's the part of this that is, to me, legitimately concerning when you talk about them in the first round, because they're not going to have Steph in the first round of the playoffs.
Nick, I'm not trying to defend the Golden State Warriors, but
defend them. We need some defense on this show.
Go back maybe 10 games ago. At that point, and I remember saying it around that time, that they now know they're not catching Houston.
Yes.
It was over. You can look at the schedule,
Yep.
who Houston had left, home games, away games, above 500, below 500.
Houston had the tiebreaker, all of it.
All that. So they looked at that. At that point, when you recognize, you know what, they're too far in front of us, we're not going to catch them, their mentality changed. They weren't chasing that carrot any longer. They weren't going to be the number one seed. They weren't going to have it all the way through the playoffs. So as a result of that, what happens, what sets in is the complacency of, all right, let's just get to the playoffs and then we start over again. What I worry about is when you turn it off, can you turn it back on? That's what I'm concerned
And there's
about.
a laid-back atmosphere in Golden State. One of the reasons why KD decided to go there was how they approach the season, how they approach practices, how they have a very casual day-to-day operation, how they practice and the style for which Steve Kerr is saying the right things. Now, I'm not going to blame Kevin Durant. I feel like certain people are trying to blame Kevin Durant for this. I'm from your camp. Man, when they went off the accelerator and put it in neutral, like you could see it and been like, wow, that's fairly obvious. I'm not concerned in the playoffs. I'm only concerned if Steph Curry is not going to be healthy, because you can't go to 3 straight finals. You can't be the reigning NBA champion unless you have a couple extra gears to go to. I believe that they still have that.
The reason, if I may, just real quick, because I'm one of those people that is blaming Kevin Durant on this. He's the second best player in the world.
Yeah,
best
I wasn't going to say your name.
No. I appreciate that. I'll be honest. Like, he's the second best player in the world. He's the best player on the team. He's the defending Finals MVP. It is on him, as the best player on that team, to, in this stretch, once they found out Steph was going to be out for the first round of the playoffs, guys, don't worry about it.
What about Draymond? But Draymond is more of a leader of that team than KD is. How about Draymond? In that same stretch of games, tell me how Draymond's played. In that same stretch of games, tell me how Klay's played. What about their bench? All right? Like, their lack of veteran presence coming off the bench. Lack of scoring from their bench.
So let me, sorry to cut you off. I thought you wanted me to answer the specific Draymond. Draymond's offense has gone away without Steph. It's just he hasn't gotten the open shots. It's gone away. Klay's been about the same guy. Klay's kind of a metronome. Like, it almost doesn't matter who's out there. None of those guys are as talented as Durant. And, like, you can't tell me that they have the confidence of, oh, we can just turn it on. They've never had to turn it on without Stephen Curry.
But the
Cavs have been mediocre, and it was LeBron.
Absolutely, but they have seen
they've been mediocre.
Agreed,
and they've had injuries.
Let me just say this, if I can, real quick, about both people. Number one, KD, personality. Is he that personality? He's not LeBron's personality. No. So KD may be the second best player in the world, but he's not that guy that vocally is going to turn on his teammates to get them to play better, raise their level. Draymond is that guy that will turn on his teammates, but at some point he has to realize, I can't keep doing this right now, because they've gone into neutral and they don't want to hear me every game. Now, we're not catching Houston. We've got to finish these next 10 games. I've got to back off a little bit. So what drives him all the time, and he pushes his teammates, he's had to back off a little bit. From the outside, that's how I look at it.
At the start of this stretch, when Steph was out and we started talking about their offensive woes, what was explained or what was thrown out on the table was, well, this is Steph's offense. And right now they're not running Steph's offense. So when he comes back, they'll be able to, and it's too late to create a different offense with these other 3 superstars, no matter how good Klay is or Draymond is or Kevin Durant is. It's still run through Steph. Do you still feel that way? And how much is that going to affect them now in the first round of the playoffs without Steph?
And the difference is, too, when Cleveland had the injuries, LeBron can take over the point, so he can run the offense. What Jenna's talking about is how Golden State and the gravity of Steph, his uniqueness as far as where he can shoot from and the pace for which they play at when he gets the ball. what it does for Clay, what it does for Draymond, and you can never help off on KD. So his ability to affect the rest of the team and the pace is totally different. LeBron, they can play at that same pace because they just give the ball to him. He pushes up. They can still play with pace and space. So the difference of Golden State without Steph, it's impossible to play that type of offense, Coach.
It's hard for me to say this and simplify it to this point, but I don't know how many people really understand the impact of the three-point shot. It's enormous in the NBA game now. And when you make a commitment as a team, as a franchise, that that's how we're going to play, Steph Curry is a monster because you can do anything you want. But when he's making threes from 3, 4, 5 feet behind the three-point line, what do you do with that? And there's no better example than the Cavaliers. For the last 3 seasons, they developed into one of the premier three-point shooting teams. That all went away early in the season. Those guys couldn't make threes early on, the group that they had. They were either too old, their legs weren't there to do it. Isaiah Thomas wasn't playing the first 37 games. Now, all of a sudden, when they've played well in the last 14, 15-game stretch, look at their three-point shooting. They're making threes again.
Coach, let me ask you this, though. Steph being out explains why the offense would go from best in the league or second best in the league to middle of the pack. I understand that. The defense getting worse without Steph Curry, the defense when you have 2 guys who, at the halfway point of this year, and Draymond and KD were on your Defensive Player of the Year ballot, 2 guys. The defense being worse when you remove from the starting lineup your worst defender, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, that's a part.
Are you telling me that Steph's not a first-team all-defensive player?
Oh, no, yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you.
Are you trying to tell me that?
Yeah, I am trying to tell you that.
If your heart and soul is not into it 100%, you're not going to be a good defensive team. You have to buy into defense. You have to be collectively. That's why the Cavaliers' defense has turned into such a poor unit defensively. And Teron Lewis saying, come playoff time, we'll get back to being a better defense. You will automatically in the playoffs because the game slows down.
Yes.
There's not as many possessions. There won't be as many points scored. There won't be as many transition baskets scored. But that's a byproduct of the game in the playoffs versus the regular season. But you can't commit 100% at the defensive end. You're not going to be a good defensive team.
Coach, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that shirt.
All right, coming up, we bind into the Jimmy G hype too early. Joe Montana thinks so. Wait till you hear what he has to say. We're back after this. If you're Jimmy Garoppolo, you're sort of living the good life, right? You finally got out from under Tom Brady's thumb in New England. You went undefeated as a starter. Oh, and you signed a contract for $137 million. Just for perspective, I got my kids' bunk beds and thought it was a good week.
It was a good week. You had a 7-year-old living in a crib, Jenna.
3. She's 3 years old, guys. She just turned 3. Despite going 5-0 as a starter, 49ers legend Joe Montana thinks the expectations are just a wee bit high for Jimmy G. Montana said, quote, it's still a little early to call Jimmy G the savior for the 49ers. CeCe, does Montana have a point there?
Joe Montana, that's my boy now. Joe is he's not easy on the compliments. You don't go to Joe Montana and be like, hey, Joe, what do you think about this player? He'd be like, Joe will actually give you a very good opinion. And Joe is not relinquishing who can be the greatest. I remember having a conversation this summer with the Krafts and the trip to Israel. Tom Brady was on the phone. I asked him, man, Joe, who's the greatest quarterback ever? Now, Tom was on the phone. He was talking to Tom. He addressed Tom and everything. Man, Tom's had a great career. Man, they hung that phone up. Joe was like, listen, bro, ain't nobody better than Joe Montana.
No, he did not.
Ain't nobody better than Joe Montana. Awesome. So that's my guy. Steve Young replaced Joe Montana. Now we're at Jimmy Garoppolo, and you guys think Joe Montana's going to be impressed with Jimmy G? No, let's just slow down a little bit. Let's think about the history of San Francisco. It happens to be pretty deep. Like, let's just slow up a little bit. Yeah, he's a good player, but we haven't seen enough of him. And that should be the consensus with Jimmy G. He looks good. They gave him a big contract, but typically it's about expectations. When you put the expectations too high, that's where Jimmy G is going to fail people. He is the franchise quarterback. He is the quarterback of that organization to move forward. Now, how good he's going to be, no one knows that. And I'm like Joe. I'm not going to go out there on the limb and be like, oh, I knew this beforehand. Right. I'm going to wait and see the cookies to see how good the cookies are before I take them out there.
And that's why I just want everyone a little bit to pump the brakes on the expectations for the Niners. There's a reason they were 1-10 to start the year last year. And I understand they won 5 straight, and now all of a sudden they've got, I think, the 9th best Super Bowl odds of any team. Let's all calm down. Like, if Jimmy G this year, at the end of the year, finishes with a passer rating in the top 15, it's wildly successful. Like, he is still, even though he's not young as far as years in the league, he's young as far as starts in the league. He's got less than half a season of starts under his belt.
7 starts total.
Total. Like, the Niners as a team have a lot of holes to fill. And go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, people don't know the 49ers personnel. When they say, oh, Jimmy G, he's going to be great. Okay, who's he going to be throwing to?
Who's he throwing to? And who's their best defensive player? Like, who's there? I understand they just drafted Solomon Thomas. They moved down from 2 to 3. They ended up taking him. Like, they have some talent that maybe they'll bring Eric Reed back, who I think is a quality safety in this league. But for the Niners, the expectation should be get to 500. For Jimmy G, the expectation should be better than half the quarterbacks in the league. And then we can start talking about, is he potentially a Pro Bowler? Are the Niners potentially a playoff team? So I don't blame Joe Montana for saying it's not Montana to Young to Jimmy G.
Jimmy G. But you know how this works. Here's a team that played terribly last year. There was nothing for these fans to root for. There was no optimism. The ceiling was the basement. There was no. Then you bring a guy in who goes 5-0 just by showing up, basically, and all of a sudden here's the heir apparent to Tom Brady, and this guy's going to come save us, and he's going to be the next big thing. And
that's still
good looking.
And what is our history? We had Joe Montana, then we had Steve Young. We must be doing something.
That's why
right.
they posed the question.
That's why. That's
what Nick and I are here to throw a cold glass of water on you. Wake up.
So good looking. What about the good looking?
No, but
that don't win you games.
Right, Jenna, you're absolutely right. That is exactly what San Francisco 49er fans should be thinking. And luckily, in San Francisco right now, it's 4:54 a.m., so they're probably not watching this right now.
Great.
So, but the reality is, if you're going to look at this from any type of unbiased standpoint, again, 8 wins would be a huge success. It would be skipping a step in the process when they were 1-10 to start last season. And you also want to look at the teams, by the way, in that 5-game winning streak who they beat, like Chicago.
Yeah.
Houston didn't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
The Rams who weren't playing anybody that week. So there's a lot of things there, and the personnel.
And don't forget about your division. At best, you're the 3rd best team.
Sure.
All right. The only team you're better than right now is Arizona.
That you're better.
On paper.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, you are not better than Seattle, and the Rams, they got something coming for you. All right? How are they going to protect Jimmy G against Aaron Donald? How are they going to protect Ndamukong Suh? He ain't stomped nobody in a while.
Right.
Look like someone with a San Francisco helmet going to be on there.
Stomping. Cece will never get over the stomping.
The dude stomped someone.
It was years ago, man. He's turned over. I can't even say with a straight face.
Also good looking. I'm Jenna Wolf, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.